No doubt it's a country that likes to think of itself as inclusive, but that depends where you're standing.
But there's never good enough. Do what I say. I run your life.
Me, as a transgender mixed-race person, we live in a deeply racist society.
Yes, and I'm your boss. I will tell you what's good and what's bad.
The government's race audit for England identified discrimination against people of colour in many of our institutions, ranging from...
And if you go to most areas of Africa, blacks will hack you up with machetes.
Does this surprise you? It's old news to me and almost a bad joke to identify it now. It's something that we've known for years, but the political will has not been there to deal with it.
And now we've got to make you guilty and beat you over the head.
Why should we expect anything else from a country that's built its success on the enslavement of non-white
So you got mega banks taking everybody over. They're conquering everybody right now. The corporate Borg's here taking over. It wants us to fight with each other. This is what's happening. We're being colonialized by globalism. We're being totally enslaved. And anything that was good before is being removed.
People like me who call out racism would be listened to.
Call out racism.
Or threatened.
Hey, you're force-fed by state-run media that wants to totally conquer the people.
Improvement for people of color. They need to understand that racism is not learned.
Oh, see, only improve for people of color. Racism.
Or unconsciously passed down through privilege. The uncomfortable truth is that the white race is the most violent and oppressive force of nature.
Oh my gosh, whites are inherently evil. Total, complete racism. Did you just hear what that lady said? Or that man? Or that creature? Literally just said whites are the most evil thing on earth. What if I said trannies are the most evil force in the universe? I don't really believe that, but see how bigoted you are, thughead? You thug with a wig on? Directors of the Wall Street Investment Bank, Dillon Read & Co. Is Assistant Secretary of Housing at Federal Housing Commissioner at the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development in the first Bush administration and was the president of Hamilton Securities Group. Catherine was and has operated close to over $25 billion of transactions and investments to date and has led portfolio and investment strategy for $300 billion of financial assets and liabilities. Catherine graduated from the University of Pennsylvania and Wharton School, same place as Trump, and studied Mandarin Chinese and Chinese University of Hong Kong. And she, again, joins us to get into a bunch of issues that I want to cover, but she wants to get into something even bigger than what's happened at Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. $21 trillion missing from U.S. accounts at DOJ, Department of Defense, and HUD, and that's even mainstream news, but it's just back of the paper. Con, how they want a constitutional convention, the dangers of a constitutional convention. We'll cover that with her in this hour and take some of your phone calls towards the end of the hour as well. But wow, what a time to be alive, Catherine.
Alex, I can't believe it. I'm talking to you, believe it or not, from Washington, D.C., a place I never come.
Wow.
So I'm right in the center of Mordor where all the money is going missing.
Well, let's talk about that because 2 days before 9/11, it was reported that $2+ trillion was missing. CBS reported it from the Pentagon. Then it was $4+ trillion later. And then now the numbers I'm seeing all combined, we're talking about $20+ trillion.
Well, actually, Alex, coming into 9/11, it was $4 trillion. And I was working with a great investigative reporter here in Washington who was about to break a huge story in a magazine that gets delivered to all the congressional and Senate offices on September 15th. And it was last work with her editor the weekend before, and then that Monday, when Rumsfeld came out and did his sort of limited hangout of the $2.3 trillion, I made the mistake of saying to her, nothing can stop this story from going mainstream now. And of course, the next day was 9/11, and so it got buried. But what has happened, and it started in fiscal 1998, the federal government has been in very significant violation of the laws related to its finances, both constitution and financial management laws. And one of the symptoms of this is that every year there are significant what's called undocumentable adjustments. So it's transactions that aren't approved in appropriation, or you can't prove are approved in appropriation, and are not transparent as they're required to be. And it's been going on for literally since 1998. But then in 2015, Department of Defense reported 6.5 trillion undocumentable adjustments, which is 10 times its budget. And then HUD almost, I think, 300 billion, again, many multiples of its budget. And it's normal in an accounting operation to have some small percentage of undocumentable adjustments. It wouldn't be considered material, but this is the equivalent. The work was finally audited and documented by Dr. Mark Skidmore from Michigan State University. And we finally loaded up on my website. If you go to missing.solari.com, we loaded up all the government documents for every year for both HUD and DOD, because what happened was Dr. Skidmore, who's a full professor of state and local government, heard me talking about the 6.5 trillion, and he said, that has to be wrong. I'm going to prove it wrong. And so he dug into the documents, and then he called me and he said, oh my God, you're right. How can this be? And so this is very significant for two reasons. One is it's a tremendous amount of money, $65,000 per person. And when you have the president and Congress saying we don't have enough money for health care or this or that, I beg to differ. If we weren't disappearing $65,000 per person, we would. That's number one. But the other thing is, when we're going to discuss significant changes in the budget, a great deal is being made out to make the general population profligate and wrong, and they should take responsibility for this. That's the danger of a balanced budget.
Sure, exactly. Well, let's get into that in the next segment and ask, how we fix it. But I want to ask now, we always hear about the $20 trillion deficit, but that's only what's currently owed on the books. Explain to folks, because if they're new listeners, this was in CBS News, ABC News, back when it was $2 trillion, then $4 trillion, then $6 trillion, then $10 trillion. Right. I mean, you see it occasionally, but it's like this whole other giant thing that's hardly discussed. It's not denied. Explain to people what it is and where you think it's going.
Well, what it is imagine if you got a report from your bank that you had $1,000 less in your bank account than you showed in your checking account register. And instead of figuring out what went wrong, did money not get deposited? Is money disappearing? You just wrote an item that said undocumentable adjustment, and now they balanced. So the way the government has balanced the books at the end of every year is to just write these undocumentable adjustments, which I would say is illegal. You can't be spending money that you can't document, is in compliance, has been approved by Congress, is appropriated under the variety of mechanisms. So, this is basically illegal. If a company did it, the stock exchange would shut them down. Investors would shut them down. The problem is the federal government can continue to sell bonds in the markets, whether they're in compliance with the laws related to their finances. The New York Fed member banks are executing these transactions. It means that the banks and the contractors who run the payment systems are affecting illegal transactions, and Congress is tolerating that. And here's the reality. Crime that pays is crime that stays. If we want to stop the corruption, then we need the money to be run according to the law. And that's why this is the 800-pound gorilla in the room.
I've seen Rumsfeld ask this in Congress before by Cynthia McKinney back when she was there, and he didn't even deny the trillions are missing. I mean, so again, where is it going?
Well, that's the question, and there are many possibilities, and I think some of it is clearly going for black budget operations. But I will tell you, from 1995 to 1995, the Fortune 500 revenues tracked with the GNP, and then suddenly, starting in 1996, with globalization, they exploded. They exploded and grew much faster. And I think a lot of that is coming out from government money. So
let's talk about that exactly. Just like China admittedly props up their stock market, the globalists are using American black money to basically manipulate markets worldwide and then siphon even more off for black budget breakaway civilization projects that make the Manhattan Project look like your kids playing on Christmas morning with a set of Tinker Toys. We'll be right back with the cost $50 to $70. It's a good deal at $39. It's $19.96 at infowarslife.com, or simply call toll-free 888-253-3139. And when you purchase BrainForce Plus or any of the other great products like Secret 12, Caveman, Oxycration Systems, all the heart of much of what we know about the whole shadow global finance and economic system worldwide. There's over $21 trillion missing outside of the $20 trillion national debt. That's 41+ trillion. Not to mention all the obligations What's really going on? Where is the money going? Well, it turns out it's just like communist China props up and manipulates their stock market. The same thing is happening now, but for special interest. And what's Trump's big crime? He's actually directing some of that largesse back towards the people and turning the economy back on. That's made him big enemies of the globalists because they want to use the control to consolidate power and have austerity for us while they live like kings. But a bigger question is, if Trump is successful, talking to this great researcher and economist, is what he's doing tenable long term? If he doesn't get the tax cuts and then doesn't cut the spending, and how could he ever shut down this private corporate looting of the Treasury? No wonder they hate him so much. So we'll get her take on, is Trump a good guy or a bad guy, and why is the establishment so mad at him? Catherine Austin Fitts, please continue.
Well, Trump is in the sort of in the middle of this turn because if you look at his first 3 months in office, he was very much about moving power back to local areas and the Make America Great Again plan, Alex. The challenge is from April 1st on, he's done a turn, and there's a lot more about using the military and defense appropriations to keep the stock market juiced. So he's trying to serve both masters, and of course Goldman Sachs and the Goldman Sachs guys are right in the heart of it. Now Trump's answer for this is, let me get financial reform and tax reform, and then everybody wins. So he's trying to switch it, not as much in the military into both, but he's trying to serve both masters. I don't think you can do both. So,
but are you saying his heart's in the right place?
Well, I think if you look at many of his different policies, he's trying to do Make America Great Again, but it falls down in the budget. I don't think he sees now a way to politically switch the money, out of the central banking warfare model, and he's playing ball.
And let's be clear, because Goldman Sachs made, 37% more just this year than they ever made before, record profits, but still they're waging war because they want the control for themselves. They don't want a bigger economy for everybody. They want to have the only economy, correct? Because you've written a lot about that. So why are they so enraged at him, despite the fact that he's forced them to change policies and it's only made them richer?
Well, but here's the thing. Well, they're not enraged with him. I mean, it was Goldman Sachs was instrumental in getting Trump elected. So, I think you have very significant corporate interests on both sides of that election, and Trump's trying to walk a very delicate line because if you listen to him in Mnuchin, he's taking the position that the stock market is his metric, and the reality is the stock market is deeply, deeply dependent on the military activity.
Absolutely, but let me break this down. But if he doesn't prop that up, it all goes. We know it's parasitic. We know it stays. We know it's got big problems. But still, it's how most companies that employ people operate. And I know you're the expert on this, but let me get this. They gave 100 to 1 at Goldman Sachs the money to Hillary. I'm not disagreeing that once he got in, he brought some of them in to carry out his operations. I mean, that's what he's got to do. But I mean, how are you saying Goldman Sachs was really behind Trump?
Alex, if you look, as soon as the Wiener laptop, the FBI got court permission to use the Wiener laptop. So that week before, Goldman Sachs and Booz Allen started trading up dramatically. So a Trump election traded, a week before. So I think Goldman Sachs, usually the investment banks are on both sides, in these campaigns. But if you certainly see putting in Cohen and putting in Mnuchin, I would say that Goldman Sachs was at least on both sides.
Well, you're going to have plenty of time to break this down in the next segment. I really respect your view and research on this. Catherine Austin Fitts of Solari.com is our guest. Let me put it to you this way. Mainstream media, the corporate culture, the foreign governments, the Pope, the EU, the Communist Chinese, I mean, they are in a frothing war against Trump. From my research, it's a real war. I know he tried to bring in the establishment and compromise them for America, get them, to come in and say, hey, the water's fine, come on in. So I see him trying to co-opt them instead of the other way around, but still there's a frothing hatred of him, or is that just show?
Well, there are two things going on. There's tension in the deep state between the people who want to make sure North America is fine versus the people who really want to sacrifice North America to do the global empire.
There you go. You are so smart. That's it. He has a soft spot for America that they see as mentally ill. They see us as lazy and dumb. He wants to keep America dominant, and that's his crime.
No, but I think you have a lot of very capable people in the military and intelligence who understand that the bankers' model is overstretched and in danger. And as risk managers, they say we've got to reground back into North America. So I think that there's a portion of the deep state who I would say is more conservative and wiser than the group backing Clinton. So I don't think this was the deep state against populism. I think this is two different factions in the deep state. And part of the challenge is, I'll be tough. Trump is under tremendous pressure not to do the Make America Great plan. He's under tremendous pressure to do, Make Israel Great plan. And there's a real tension there. And part of it is the stock market, again, is very dependent on military activities. I mean, I don't think Trump really ended up planning on being an arms salesman for $1 a year, but that's part of what happened. And so for all of us, what we need to do is how do we get what is healthy for counties and states in America to be good for the stock market and the stock market to be good for us on the ground, because we've been through a process of securitizing more and more of the economy into the stock market in a way that's hurting the basic economy. We're propping it up with government money. So you mentioned very rightly, we have $20 trillion of debt. Well, if I issue government bonds and then suck that money through the government budget and use it to make corporations wealthier in a way that's not good for the general economy, we end up exactly where we've ended up right now.
All right. I got a lot of my questions in there because I know what your views are on this, and I know they're accurate, and I wanted you in your own words to lay that out, but that's really it. There's another deep state that isn't out to get America, that realizes that we're the heart of the Renaissance. We need to be rebuilt, not sold out on the altar of globalism. They're not even against the empire and total globalism and the rest of it. They're just not this sycophantic pro-China, pro-kind of communist angle. And I know you also trained in China, that somehow sees America as an adversary, whereas we have elites saying, why should we kill the golden goose? Is that a good way to say it?
Yeah, so think of it this way. You have a group in the deep state who I think would like to optimize the wealth and well-being of 325 million Americans, as opposed to take Silicon Valley, re-engineer labor out of everything and make a few people rich and just say the rest are expendable.
Stay right there, because what you just said is the absolute key to everything. If you want to see all the fake liberals, the drooling, wicked tech owners, they are the most ruthless, slave factory owning, post-human type folks, and they say they're liberal all day as their political cover. I'd say Catherine Austin Fitts is a real liberal. We'll hear from her on the other side. Stay with us. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're running the biggest special we've ever had for our best-selling product, Brain Force, now Brain Force Plus. There's 20% more in each. In urban development under the Clintons, and became a major whistleblower on the first $4 trillion missing from the Pentagon. It's now $21 trillion plus going into this deep state apparatus. But when I talk about how you couldn't be getting more important information, did you just hear her? If you just joined us, I'm going to get her to now recap it because I was jumping in a lot because it's so important. Trump simply wants America to be prosperous as a command base for this major system. The globalists have decided to absolutely exploit people with what they call a breakaway civilization, replace us with robots to make us obsolete. As Bill Joy, the co-owner of Sun Microsystems, said in 1999, 18 years ago, in Wired magazine. He went to a conference of 200-plus tech owners. They unanimously agreed to begin phasing people out, but first get them hooked up to virtual reality, get them so unhealthy and so drugged out that they sign waiver forms to basically be drugged to death after that. Now, this all sounds insane. This is the admitted plan. And all the virtual reality shows that are coming out in movies and, Player One, Ready, all this stuff is their admitted plan, not my opinion. That's why the credibility of this broadcast goes up and up. Not that I'm that smart. I have the experts on. I read the globalist documents. I'm aware of their plan. Here comes Trump saying, we're going to build a world for humans. We're going to release the secrets of the universe that they already have found many of. We're going to deploy the technology to new development. The globalists are like, no, you're not. The tech giants pose as liberals and have the BBC churning out that Europe's evil and families are evil and all the rest of it to make us fight with each other in the final phase of the takeover. Go ask somebody, does Donald Trump own factories with suicide nets around them? No, Apple. Does Donald Trump make his people package more than 200 packages an hour, 200 boxes an hour until their hands are bleeding at his factories? No, it's Amazon. Does Amazon own its own apartment buildings, 300 square foot coffin apartments, 200 square foot, and charge you more per square foot than anybody else has ever been charged, but makes you basically live there to work for them in a sharecropper situation? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the truth is they're cold-blooded sickos, but they pose as liberals as their political cover, because traditionally it was liberals that were against child labor. It was liberals that were against slave labor. They've taken over the global liberal movement with neoliberalism. So Catherine Austin Fitts, you've got the floor. Recap what you've said, lay out these facts for people so they understand what we're facing, and then you talk about the shadow global corporate system where the $21 trillion is gone.
So Alex, a process started 20 years ago. It's what I call the financial coup d'etat, the same time the money went missing. What we've done is government has laundered, or through the governmental mechanism, we have laundered tremendous amounts of technology and tremendous subsidized low capital into the tech industry, including Silicon Valley. And what we've done is we've made it nearly impossible for small business to access competitive in the market cost of capital. A lot has been done to make sure this technology and capital didn't get to small business.
They use taxpayer money to finance a breakaway corporate civilization?
Well, you've used taxpayer money to finance a breakaway civilization through the black budget, whether it was the securities fraud that ended up in the bailouts or the missing money. But what you've also done is you've laundered, you've made it possible to pay corporations large amounts of money on government contract. They invent the most powerful black budget technology, and you let them own that, or you launder it into Silicon Valley. And so when you talk to the tech billionaires, which I have, they will literally say, well, we can replace all humans with AI and software. And what they don't understand is that they are massively subsidized by the government. They really don't understand it. They're just living in their little bubble. And what they don't understand is as soon as they achieve that, they'll be thrown overboard too. So the reality is we've got to put small business back in the game, and we've got to put municipalities back in the game so that this technology really helps humans and makes a difference to the real economy, because centralizing the economy shrinks the pie. And that is the source of inequality. It's basically the ability of selected players to operate consistently outside the law, financed with government money.
The ultimate discrimination. The ultimate discrimination. Yeah. And then they admit in their white papers, they distract us with all this culture war and fake stuff when we should all be unified about equal access to the market, transparency, and having tax money used to build a platform for all of us, not for a bunch of spoiled, rotten, wannabe transhumanist, power-tripping Jeff Bezoses and Mark Zuckerbergs that call their users dumb effers.
Well, I haven't seen Bezos do that, but the reality is what we need is a process where we go back to markets. In other words, we haven't had markets in this country for decades.
Sure, I was talking about Zuckerberg.
Right, yeah, Zucker. I call him Faceberg, but
yeah.
So the reality is we need to get back to markets, and the problem you have is you've got a win-lose relationship now between information technology systems and the financial system and people and places. You've got to get that back into a win-win, because we don't need a win-lose the other way. We don't need to help people and then have the stock market crash and the money not make sense. So you've got a governance structure that has no integrity. You've got information systems that have no integrity, and a financial system that has lost a great deal of integrity. And what we're all talking about is how do you bring integrity? And what I'm saying is if you finance criminals doing criminal things that are killing you, you've got to cut off their money. And that's why I keep talking about enforcing the Constitution and holding the government accountable, because if you shut off that secret money, that's being taken illegally, you have a way of turning this around, because you have one group of players who are operating outside the law, financed with our money, and whether it's the breakaways or the money rolling into Silicon Valley, you've got to address that, which is why I keep coming back to enforce the Constitution, enforce the Constitution. There's an effort, instead of enforcing the Constitution, to change it, which I believe will basically tear up the Constitution. And that's what they have to do to keep all the money that they've stolen through the financial coup d'etat, whether it was the money in the bailouts, the missing money, or God knows what money is disappearing, within the 30 miles around me as we talk.
You're right there in D.C., and that's why they're so arrogant. Right. It's why they're so angry, and that's why they want to destroy Trump, because he just has the idea of let's think humans have a future, let's make humans valuable, when really all they're trying to do is teach us that we're dehumanized and that we're bad, so we have no life force, so we have no survival instinct, so we just give up.
Well, remember, you've got, in these different groups, you've got basically the East Coast and the West Coast. You see, you've got D.C., Wall Street, Silicon Valley, and Hollywood. And when you talk with people in these groups, they really don't know. They see the bubble that they're in, but they don't see the whole picture. So you'd be amazed how many people who are in this thing, who could go in a different direction if they had an honest map, which is why it's so important what you're doing with InfoWars. You're trying to give them an honest map. But I will tell you, there are a lot of people in the system who really don't see the big picture, a lot who are just going with the flow. And I hate to say this, Alex, the corruption around this in the general population is significant. It's not just...
Absolutely. We deserve what's happening to us. We have created the atmosphere and the climate to allow this to happen. Solari.com. Catherine Austin-Fitts, one of the smartest people out there. This is really just an emergency transmission to humanity. I don't want to just live for today. I want to live for my children and grandchildren. I see how far humanity's come, all the things we've done together. And people ask, why am I so excited? Why do I have so much energy? It's because when you realize that there are a few psychopaths on top who do know what's going on and think they're going to fight over who has the final AI control, just as Catherine said, you realize what the stakes are. We got to go to break. We're going to come right back to Catherine. She's going to get to this big point she's got. And then she's going to talk about more solutions. And like she said, Constitution, Bill of Rights, bring back transparency. But the bigger thing she talked about is waking people up, getting people involved, letting people know they have value to expose this program that is such a fraud. We'll be right back on the other side of this break. I'm Alex Jones, and if you're receiving this transmission, you are the resistance. A global human awakening to the centralization of power, to mainstream media, and to Hollywood, to the NFL. It seems to all be in massive decline.
So let me tell you the good news. The good news is if you look at the government flows, whether it's the credit, the money going missing, the budget, the reality, Alex, is if we run the government budget to prop up the stock market without thought to what's best for the economy, then you get a centralization of wealth, but you shrink the pie from what it could be. And the reality is if we turn it around and create a win-win relationship between people and places in the stock market, we can get a much bigger pie, which is what we need to do. We need to expand wealth. The problem with this model is it's shrinking it, down into a few hands. And so the good news is it's possible. There's no economic reason why we can't. What it requires is a really major turn in the economy. Now, I posted up on my website notes to support this. I've got a wonderful piece called How to Enforce the Constitution, because what you need for the economy to work is you need law. What we've got is lawlessness and corruption. We need law. So the question is, how does each one of us working in our own lives get that? Well, there are a number of things you can do. The banks that are transacting the 21 trillion of illegal transactions, if we all stopped banking at those banks and moved instead to an honest and ethical local credit union or community bank, is one thing we can all do. The second thing we can do is we can work with our state legislators to make sure we don't approve the state call for con-cons, or if your state is approved it, get it repealed. And then the third thing is, in the list that I posted at Solari.com, there are lots of ideas of how we can enforce the Constitution. And of course, everybody's different. But if each one of us, and here's the other good news, Alex, it doesn't take everybody. If 5 to 10% of the people who want to act, it can make a huge difference, particularly if more are just willing to move their bank. One of the reasons that people go along with this is they watch the general population supporting the criminals. I mean, again and again and again, you and I have both experienced the extent to which the general population will put their money in their banks, turn on their media, put their advertising dollar in their media, buy from them. If we will just shift, it's the safest thing in the world to do, just shift the money. Ellen Chapman, the attorney who wrote J.P. Madoff about J.P. Morgan's complicity in Madoff, estimated in her book that directly or indirectly, 50% of Americans bank at J.P. Morgan Chase. Why? Imagine tomorrow if everyone shifted their money. It would it would ring huge bells in Wall Street and Washington. They'd come to their knees and they'd start changing.
And so you're talking about, we have the ballot box, the grand jury box, the cartridge box, the soap box, but we've also got voting with our dollars, with our feet. Absolutely. Look at Hollywood. Look at the NFL. That power is the greatest power. It's why the elites want to get rid of the free market system. They want to use it to get control, a limited free market, a crony system. But once they've gotten control, they want to pull up the levers. They want to get rid of competition because they know that people can turn against them, and it's beginning to happen. You're absolutely right.
You did a fabulous interview with Aaron Rousseau, which I keep republishing on my website. I use it in presentations, where Aaron explained to you the bankers' goal is to chip everybody. It's the mark of the beast. And now with the rollout of cryptocurrencies, that's exactly what they're getting all the freedom fighters to prototype their control system.
And China has effectively brought in a cashless system. Sweden's making you get a chip to get on trains. It's here.
Right, it's here. And so, the thing I try and communicate, yes, I've worked at the top of Washington. Yes, I've worked at the top of Wall Street. These folks believe in slavery. One of the reasons the African-American slave trade was canceled was the bankers had no way to perfect collateral. Digital technology changes that. And the reason I keep hammering on now is the time, we've got to do it now. If we don't get the turn in the next 1 to 5 years, the reality is where they want to go is replace all the humans with AI and software, chip us all, and there you are. It's slavery. It's that, if it goes the wrong direction, it's that bad. We have nothing to lose by acting. Whatever risk you have to take, boy, is it worth it.
And even if someone's not a Christian, you can look at how they're using it as an archetype, Revelation, Daniel, all of it, as a total control system. So even if you don't believe that this is real, they're constructing it, they're using it as a blueprint, so they're manifesting it and making it real.
Right, but it's you have to understand they're not only looking to control you physically, they're looking to literally control your mind. You're talking about implementing a system that can deliver and does deliver entrainment technology, subliminal programming. I mean, imagine another 20 years of more aggressive technologies. We know that they have, literally technology that can place thoughts into your head.
Oh, yeah, so the smartphones are programming people. The flicker rates, that's been declassified. Incredible.
Right.
Catherine, I know you're a busy lady. Solari.com. Everyone should get your magazine. Give it to everybody. Everybody should send your website out. Please, we've got 3 new shows we're doing, and we're launching more broadcast here. So thank you. I'd love to get you to be a regular contributor whenever you want to come on. God bless you, and I look forward to talking to you very, very soon.
Very good. I'm a huge InfoWar fan. Always a pleasure to be on. Thanks, Alex.
Well, thank you. Solari.com. Catherine Austin Fitts, thank you so much for all you do. Wow, what an amazing lady. And again, folks, I can't help but start frothing when she's on because this is all real. I mean, if I saw my neighbors getting mugged and I couldn't do anything and I was tied up, I would be really freaking out. If I was a dog and saw my neighbors getting robbed, I'd be barking. I mean, I'm really upset because this is an admitted plan. How do you think we just continue to predict everything that's going to happen? Because the globalists are running an operation. We're aware of it. And the good news is the fact that there's a world government's now known. The fact that it's authoritarians now known. The fact that it's out to get us is now known. We're going to defeat this. It's going to be rough, though. I'm getting chills, though, right now because it's such an amazing time to be alive. And every one of you, of every color, of every creed, all this race war garbage. The BBC program I played earlier where they said whites are inherently bad people. That's BBC television every week having black people tell you you're inherently evil because you're white. That's pure racism, but it's not the black people. It is the globalist media control arm wanting us all at each other's throats. It's so sick. The machines are taking over. The globalists are taking over. They're programming us to the television. We're all being hit with fluoride and GMO. We're all getting killed here. And I'm sick of it. Wake up and take action and fight back with what God gave us through Mother Nature. We got a bunch of specials that are ending today. The Caveman Bone Broth Ultimate Formula will end today because it's about to sell out. Super Mel Vitality is 30% off despite the fact it's been sold out for a while. We just got it back in. Brain Force, the Great Nootropic, is ending this week, 50% off. Secret 12, high quality, 40% off. Survival Shield X2, 40% off. Biotrue Selenium, 40% off. You die without the X2 and the selenium. That's why they don't tell you about it. It's key for electrochemical activities. That's the brain. That's all your nerves. Biotrue Selenium, 40% off. Survival Shield X2, 40% off. If you'll just commit to sign up for auto ship so you support us each month. You can cancel any time to get an additional 10% off. But whatever you do, Anthroplex is the new special, 50% off. I forgot to tell you about that we've never done that before. InfoWars Life.
Came across this tree burning from the inside out. Matthew McDermott was driving around looking for escape routes as multiple fires closed in on the area he was in. The tree appears that to be hollowed out by embers and flames.
Secretary, can I ask you a question about some of the technology that you're developing to fight the war on terror, specifically directed energy and high-powered microwave technology? When do you envision that you can weaponize that type of technology?
Goodness, it is in, for the most part, the kinds of things you're talking about are in varying early stages. Do you have anything you'd add?
I don't think I would add much. I think they are in early stages and probably not ready for employment at this point.
In the normal order of things, when you invest in research and development and begin a developmental project, you don't have any intention or expectations that one would use it. On the other hand, the real world intervenes from time to time, and you reach in there and take something out that is still in a developmental stage, and you might use it. So
There's been willing to put them into the fight even before they've been fully wrung out, and I think that's not referring to these two particular cases of directed energy or high-powered microwave, but sure.
Of poles that are bent, but you have absolutely no materials. The houses have not fallen. The houses have disappeared. The materials of these contents of these houses are gone. I want to show you where these fires are, because if you're like me, you didn't know that there were 14 separate fires. How did 14 separate fires start over such a wide area? You guys, this isn't normal. This is not how it works. And this is not just the home that's left standing. These homes, it's only one home left. These homes didn't fall. These homes didn't burn. These homes disappeared. There's nothing left. There's not even a toilet bowl or a bathtub or a kitchen sink. The rest of the stuff is all gone. This is impossible. This is just not normal. What on earth has happened here, people? Look at this glow. This is not a normal glow. This is not a normal glow. This is electromagnetic frequencies in this air. This is not a flame. This is not from a flame. See this halo here on the screen over here to the right? This is not there's something in the energy level in this atmosphere that is just completely messed up. You guys, where are the steel beams that held this house together? Where are the appliances? How come the plastic things are still in place? What is this? What's going on in this picture, you guys? Look at this metal. Just look at this. It's all twisted. Look at this. What happened to this car? What happened to this car? Where's the rest of it? Where is the rest of this car, you guys? Where is it? There's no top. This was not a convertible. You can see by the doors. This wasn't a forest fire. Because look at the forest did not catch on fire. But the house disappeared. The house is gone. The materials in this house are absolutely 100%, they're just gone. There's nothing left. Now this one really, you guys, this one, if you guys don't see September 11th all over this, then you guys are blind, because look at this. This is an I-beam. This is a steel I-beam, and it's just completely twisted and bent. These are some sort of weapon, energy weapon. This is something, I don't even know what to say, you guys, but this is not a fire. Metal doesn't bend and split. This I-beam is split in the middle. Look at that. This I-beam is split in the middle. That does not happen in a fire where all the trees, and look at the leaves on the trees are still fine. These are pine trees, people. Pine trees burn, like I said, if you light a cigarette near one too closely, you'll burn the whole tree. Look at this. Let's look at these twigs. How can the twigs be standing and the metal be bent? What the hell happened here? This looks like a ribbon. This cast iron fencing looks like a ribbon. It does not. This is not normal. Completely twisted and disintegrated. There's nothing left here. Look at this. What happened to this car? What happened to the building? How did everything in the entire building look? If you can look, you guys, look. Here's the thing. I just showed you. Inside a forest fire, it's not a complete combustion because you're not in a chambers. It's not in enclosed chambers. Okay? At this point, the highest temperature of the fire has already passed. From here on out, it's going to cool, and the fire's going to go away. Why? Because there's the oxygen is consistent. That it runs out. It can't do a complete total burn. Pure combustion just to combust materials down to nothing requires a vacuum-like chamber with a complete constant flow of oxygen. That's why it takes so long to burn a body. You have to have it in a furnace, or to melt metal. You have to have it in a furnace. It doesn't happen like this. All the metal, all the steel beams, all the wood, everything is just completely turned to dust. That doesn't happen on an open air fire.